Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? You're watching ECLECTICKA. I'm Seven. We have Dean and our special guest, Cerece Rennie Murphy. How you doing?
Ooh, I'm good. Hi.
Oh my goodness, it took so long to get you on this
Oh,
show.
I don't know what to say about that. Well, thanks. Hopefully, the wait will be worth it.
Oh no, definitely, definitely awesome talent. So, for all of you that don't know, she's the writer of the Order of the Seers, um, and it's awesome to see not just the fact that this is Women's Month, Women's History Month, to see a woman write a great trilogy, but one that comes from a different perspective, one that's actually awesome, and just pushing it, and it like just breaking a whole bunch of
Uh,
you know, boundaries. So that's really awesome.
Thanks. Thanks so much. It's a privilege to be here. Thanks, guys, for inviting me. But there are a lot of women who have gone before me, are in this field, and are doing telling amazing stories. And I'm proud to be one of them. I know it doesn't seem when you go to the conventions that there are that many women writing science fiction, and certainly that many women of color, but we are, and we got to do a better job of sort of putting it out there because we're all doing some really great stuff right now. So yeah.
That's awesome. So Dean, you're a big sci-fi guy. I'm a big sci-fi guy, and I have to mention this just as soon as we start, just because difference between Star Wars and Star Trek is what?
Difference
Oh,
is Star Wars is science fantasy.
Uh huh.
Star Trek is science fiction.
Okay.
mm,
Star Trek is along the lines of this old sci-fi writers,
yeah.
Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, who actually had these forward-thinking things that actually have come to be. You look at your cell phone, that's a Star Trek communicator.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you look at they made fun of Star Trek. Oh, beam me up, beam me down. You see what a fax machine does?
Yeah, yeah.
That new Google thing where they have that, that camera on the eye and all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the old Star Trek Deep Space Nine, it
Yep,
had that
they
there.
had that. Yep, I
That's all.
remember.
That's all science fiction saying. You know what? What if we had this? What if we had that? And then it comes to be Star Wars. Why? I mean, it's just science fantasy. It's nothing really. What do we have today? Came from Star Wars.
Well, wait a minute.
What?
Oh
Wait
wow.
a minute.
What?
You're going in some dangerous territories there, sir.
Oh
I'm
wow.
willing to go there.
Now see,
With science fiction, also with Star Trek, it was a lot of. Look at what it did.
What
The
about all the robotics?
first, but that was Star Trek had that too.
Okay,
yeah, but
what
Star Wars had it.
I think
Star Wars had it?
that's old sci-fi. That's not that was not. They didn't add anything. Remember, we did this before. George Lucas stole a lot. He stole from Jack Kirby. He stole from Star Trek. Oh, you have not been watching our show, Siri.
Oh, I have not. Well, I don't know. Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish, Dean.
He was heavily influenced by Jack Kirby. George Lucas was heavily influenced by Jack Kirby's New Gods and all. The character Dark Side with the son who was a good guy, Orion. There you got your Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker thing going on right there. And even used the name "Come to the Dark Side." Oh, how blatant obvious is that?
Well, the dark side of the notion is not owned by anyone. I mean, it's like prehistoric. I mean, this whole idea of good versus evil, and I mean, that's not anybody's. Nobody owns that.
No,
I mean,
it was.
but I get what you're saying. Go ahead. Go ahead as you put down like my hero. Go ahead.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the show.
I would love to have.
Damn.
I'd love to have a 1% of that market, But and the other one, Star Trek, it was really fast forward. I mean, first a major role for a black female character was on Star Trek. First interracial kiss, Star Trek.
Yeah, and I was so sad.
First interracial anything. Look at that set. You had a black woman leading the ship with the telecommunications. He had an Asian driving the ship with all these jokes about Asian drivers. This guy's piloting the Enterprise, the Ferrari of spaceships.
Ferrari of
But
the Millennium Falcon.
but what about
Ferrari of
You
space?
know, it was
bionic limbs?
You
What
know?
about artificial
and that was another
intelligence?
good thing.
Artificial
The-
intelligence, bionic. I Googled it real quick
Do you
because I
watch
just want to
Star
make
Trek?
sure.
I had all that already.
Sliding door, holograms.
So much.
You know what? I think. Here's what I'll say about Star Trek versus Star Wars.
Okay.
I grew up. My dad is a huge Star Trek fan. I loved it, but it felt more adult. I mean, growing up as a kid, watching there just seemed to be more adult themes. When I watched Star Wars Empire Strikes Back in the theater, it captured my imagination as a child. I was 7. No, I mean, when you're talking about, you got lightsabers, okay, well, that's just a cool spaced out sword. But, I mean, that's fine. I think what captured my imagination about Star Wars was the fantasy, was the world. It was a very diverse community. I mean, you had Lando Calrissian, you had Chewbacca, and while, yeah, it wasn't necessarily race in the context that sort of we understand it in this world, but that was the whole point of the fantasy, is that you had these green people and these blue people and these, Wookiees and these, and they were all coming together. And then you had Yoda. And let us not forget Yoda as a diverse character. And I know that he's a puppet and it doesn't matter, but Yoda had a profound impact on me as a kid. And I think for us who love Star Wars a little more than Star Trek, it's about it was about the level of imagination. And while, yeah, Star Trek may be more pure science fiction, I think in terms of capturing the imagination and what worlds could be. I mean, I remember watching Star Trek and, okay, they're like green people, but like, it didn't seem that different from my world, where Star Wars was just completely different. I mean, you really had creatures that were characters that you really got to know, and you got to love them over, a trilogy and then more, as opposed to just, an hour episode. And that's not to take away from Star Trek. I think it was, like you said, it was groundbreaking on a number of levels. But, I think Star Wars captured the imagination of not just the world that you saw and how it could be in terms of, the future and space travel, but how we could be as a society. And that resonated with me.
Well, that's why I like Star Trek for those same reasons, because it had a lot of creatures, and it's still the only science fiction show, if you look at it, it's not a dystopia.
That's true.
People working together.
Yep.
Everything else I see on TV now, whatever, I'm getting tired of even talking about The Walking Dead or Helix or 12 Monkeys or all these other shows. Everything's a dystopia. Blade Runner, Judge, everything's a dystopia. The only one that showed a good future was Star Trek.
We believed in
and they showed a lot of different.
We were more hopeful.
Yeah, Star Trek was more hopeful, and that's the one I want to deal with.
But it doesn't that ring also to the time period, because if you think about it, 60s, that was a trying time. Everyone was trying to figure the path. What is the future going to look like? The people that have the reins are eventually going to die off. I mean, I guess 20 something to 50 always look at like, well, who's really controlling everything? We're going to have to take the reins. So when they created a science fiction that said, okay, we're going to create a future where we're working together, and it's about going beyond what we have right now. Let's push the limits. And the only thing that you could really push the limits at that point is, well, we're going to go into other worlds. I thought that was deep about it. Like, let's go past where we figured it all out, you know, because that was that generation. We could figure it all out, and then what happens after we figure it out? Well, we got to go to another planet.
Well, the other worlds.
We're getting deep today, by the way.
The whole thing, you're right, but the whole thing was a metaphor for the other cultures. There's this great episode with Frank Gorshin on Star Trek where he's half black and half white, and he's pursuing his enemy who looks just like him, And the Star Trek crew can't figure out what the problem is. And the other guy says, "Don't you see? He's half black and half white. I'm half white, half black."
Oh wow.
Colors, even though they were both, I
Right.
mean, we laugh at it, but we get what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And in the end, they ended up destroying each other. They were the last two left of their people, and they just couldn't work things out, and they ended up killing each other.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
I don't remember that episode.
Yeah, well, that's, it's because
Well,
you
that's why Dean is the man. 'Cause-
That's like Star Trek is really, and you had like I was saying, it was a metaphor for so many things. And you're right. You got to look at the time period.
Right.
Yeah.
You had civil rights going on. I mean, Martin Luther, when Michelle was going to quit the role of Uhura, Martin Luther King Jr. approached her and said, "Don't quit.
Wow.
You to stay on this show."
I'm getting history today.
Okay. That's what he told her, and she did. She stayed on the show. You also had Vietnam going on.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Cold War going on. Kennedy was assassinated before the show started. A lot was going on, and what's sad is everything back then still holds true today. It's still a mess. It's gotten worse.
See, that's where they're showing all this dystopian. I was just listening to Obama's speech. Everything is not the same. Things haven't gotten worse. Things are. We have a long way to go, but things are improving.
Right.
The fact that we're here and doing this show, and I just was at FAMU last weekend, and I did a talk on the importance of the independent voice, and the fact that you and I have more opportunities to get our views, to share our opinions and our views on the world out, means that you and I can impact change more than probably any other generation of people before us. So I don't believe that things are getting worse. I believe that we are at a tough spot and there's a lot more we have to do, but it can't be possible that things are getting worse because we are here.
Amen to that, sister.
I know you're Dean. You're like, girl, I don't know what New York.
I can go off on all that, but you know what? So who influenced you in your writing?